You're listening to The Hikam with Shaykh Zahir Bacchus of the Lotri Foundation. In this podcast, Shaykh Zahir explains the aphorisms from Ibn Ata'illah's famous book of wisdoms, Al-Hikam Al-Ata'iyah, a classical manual of spiritual development. Visit seekershub.org for online courses, our reliable answer service, and engaging media.
Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما بفضلك وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم آمين. The hikmah that we're going to do today is connected to the one that we did yesterday. That of the strangeness is those who flee from the one that you can never be separated from. So it involves, yesterday we talked about the servant whose aim is to, their aim is to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, yet at the same time is to look with the inward eye, is to look at the heart, and to look through the heart, and to have insight into what one wants in terms of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so one can work for different things. One journey to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, one would, if one has insight, one can see why one does what one does. And it's very important to assess for the believers. Why do you do the things that you do? Why? Why do you pray? Why do you come to the mosque? Why do you pray in jama'ah? Is it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Is it to be seen by people? Why do you want things that you want? Why do you want things that you want? Why do you want to talk? Why do you want to teach? Why do you want to lead salah? Why do you want to become this profession or that profession? Why do you want people to know about it? If we assess those things, and those things are needed, and they're a need of the believers to assess, those things are needed for a believer to assess in themselves and to ask themselves those questions. Is very key for a believer to ask themselves those questions and to ascertain the intention behind the things that they do, or to ascertain the intention behind the things that they want or that they seek, to ascertain the intention behind the things that they seek, because it can either earn them great rewards with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or it will earn them damnation. It'll earn them sins, and they can earn something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not want the believers to enter into or go into. And so one has to leave one has to leave the ego and work towards fulfilling what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants you to fulfill truly and absolutely, and that's leaving, having a departure from this world before you actually depart with your soul from this world, is having a departure from working and doing things for created beings. And so this is how it's connected to the previous hikmah, and this is what he says Shaykh ibn Ata'illah rahmatullah alayhi, he says, لا ترحلوا ولا ترحل من كون إلى كون فتكون كحمار الراحة يسير والمكان الذي ارتحل إليه هو الذي ارتحل منه. So he says, do not travel from one created being to another created being. Do not travel from one created thing to another. From one qawn ila qawn. Do not travel from one created thing to another. Lease or so kahimarin arraha yasiru, so that you look like, or that you become, so it looks like you're like, would be like a donkey turning a millstone. You'll be a donkey turning a millstone. A donkey, when they used to grind grains in the past, how they used to grind the grain and flush it is that they used to, there was a stone in the middle, and they used to put the grain in, and the donkey used to go around this grain. He used to be hooked up, and he used to walk around the grain. He used to go around the grain, and he used to grind. He would grind the wheat and flesh it out. And so Ibn Ata'illah uses this as a metaphor to think about. Don't travel from one thing to another thing, one created being to another created being, lest you be a donkey turning a millstone. وَالْمَكَانَ الَّذِي ارْتَحَلَ إِلَيْهِ وَالَّذِي ارْتَحَلَ مِنْهُ. And the place it walks along, and the place that it is going to is the place that it just comes from, that it just came from. That's the donkey going around millstone. So the place that it's leaving is the place that it will eventually come back to. Is a place that it eventually come back to. Meaning it doesn't, the work that it does, the donkey, the place that it leaves is the place that it will come back to. It's circular, the path. And then he says, وَلَكِنْ إِرْحَلْ مِنَ الْأَكْوَانِ إِلَى الْمُقَوِّنِ. And so he says, rather journey from created things to the Creator. Journey from the created things to the Creator. إِلَى الْمُقَوِّنِ. Journey from the created things to the Creator. وَعَنَّا إِلَىٰ رَبِّكَ الْمُنْتَهَى. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and to your Lord is the final destination. And to your Lord is the final destination. And he includes this in the hikmah. And so we're working going towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we're leaving, our path is not circular by any means. The believer's path should never be circular. The believer's path is a projection, and it's a straight. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Sirat al-Mustaqim. The Sirat al-Mustaqim is a straight path. It's not a circular path. It's a straight path. And the straight path is from this dunya, or from one's ego, or from one's caprice, or from one's hawa, desires, to where? To Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, leaving it, or leaving the concern for this world, or the working for this world, or the slavehood to this world, to the slavehood with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so the path, the trajectory is straight. So the Prophet, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, وَأَنَّا إِلَىٰ رَبِّكَ الْمُنْتَهَى, or inna, it's also a narration, وَإِنَّا إِلَىٰ رَبِّكَ الْمُنْتَهَى, and to your Lord is the final place, is the final resting place, or is the final destination that you're going to. And that's the heart traveling to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this travel of the believer is that we go to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Our souls will travel to Him when we pass away. But your heart can go to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala even before death. Your heart can go to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is what is meant here by Ibn Ata'illah rahmatullahi, by putting this ayah here, is before the death overtakes you, travel to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Have your goal and be Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and do not work for created beings. Do not do the deeds that you do just in order to satisfy created beings, or to satisfy the nafs, or to satisfy the ego. So one has to look at one's motivation. What is one motivated? What is the motivation behind the things that one does? Why is one doing the things that one do? What is the intention behind the things that you want to do? And what is it that you want to acquire? Or what is it that you want to gain? And so these are the things that one has to ask oneself, because in a way, to go and to do work for created things, to do works for created things without raising the intention to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we do things for created things. We do things and we take care of our children and our spouses, and we work in order to earn a living so that we can take care of them. But those things are rights that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has and placed upon us towards them. Those are rights. And we fulfill it because we want to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're not fulfilling it in order to for them to be grateful to us. We're not. If someone does and fulfill a right in order to seek the gratefulness of the person, then one has trapped oneself, as what he says. You're just going to go from created things, created beings, to other created beings. Rather, you can raise it, and you raise it with the intention. You raise it with the intention by telling yourself that the rights that you're fulfilling, that the things that you're doing, the work that you're doing, the earning that you're making it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to fulfill the rights that others have upon you, the rights that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to you to fulfill. And so you're raising it, with your intention, you're raising it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're not just doing it just for the person. Anyone who seeks, gratefulness at the end of doing something for someone has not done it for the sake of Allah. You've done it in order for the person to be grateful. And how do you know that this is what you seek? If you get upset when they don't thank you. If it plays on one's mind, if it enters into one's heart that you were not thanked, or they were not grateful for what you did for them, then you know that you're going from one created being to another, because the intention was not proper to begin with in the action. It was not proper. If the intention is proper, then we wait for the reward with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If the intention was proper, you would wait for the reward with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Our adab is to thank people for the things they do. Our etiquette, the etiquette of the Prophet ﷺ was to thank people for the things that they did. When someone does you something and they helped you, or they fulfill a need that you have, our etiquette towards them is to be thankful, because thanking them is by way of thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But for the one who fulfills their need, whether they thank you or they don't thank you should not even matter. It should be the same. They thank you or they don't thank you, it should be the same. Because why should it be the same? Because you haven't done it for them. You haven't done it for them. You've done it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even if they ask, if someone asks you for something, you should be grateful that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has brought them to ask you in order for you to be rewarded from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's just Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala His concern over you that people have come to ask of you. It's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala concerned for you. Because if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was not concerned, He wouldn't bring people to ask you so that you can gain rewards from Him. He wouldn't bring people. And so one has to this is the journey. The true journey to the Creator is the journey of the heart in purifying itself to seeing the reality of you and your relationship to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What is the journey except this? The journey to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this world. And so one who has who starts the journey, maybe saddened by the non-responsiveness of people, maybe saddened by them not being grateful, maybe saddened by them not showing their gratitude for what you've done. One may be saddened by those things. But as one travels to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then one understands at the end it's not them that you're seeking the reward from. It's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you're seeking the reward from. And then he says, وَانظُرْ إِلَىٰ قَوْلِهِ صَلَى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَآلِهِ وَسَلَّمَ فَمَنْ كَانَ هِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ فَهِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ. And whoever's immigration was for Allah and His Messenger, for verily his immigration is for Allah and His Messenger. Whoever immigration is to Allah and His Messenger, then his immigration is to Allah and His Messenger. Meaning as the intention, what is the intention behind the actions that you do and the deeds that you do? It all depends. So if you travel to Allah and His Messenger, if that is your immigration, if that is your intention, to seek the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to seek in the sunnah and the belovedness of the Prophet ﷺ, to gain love of the Prophet ﷺ, then that's what you're going to get. That's what you're going to get. If it's to seek other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then you will get that too. But you may be barred from getting the rewards with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You may be barred from getting the rewards of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Seeking and wanting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is higher. It's higher, and the form is higher, and the goal is higher, and the reward is greater. And then he says, وَمَنْ كَانَ, from the Prophet ﷺ, وَمَنْ كَانَ هِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى الدُّنْيَا يُصِيبُهَا أَوْ الْأَمْرَأَةٍ يَنْقِهُهَا فَهِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى مَا هَاجَرَ إِلَيْهِ. And then the Prophet ﷺ, he says, and whoever's immigration was for worldliness, was for dunya, worldliness, that he wants to attain, or a woman that he wants to wed, then his immigration is to that which he emigrated for, or that which he emigrated to. The Prophet ﷺ said this, that whoever wants this world, then he's going to get it. So one has to see what is it that one wants to do. This is, the hadith is in terms of niyyah. The hadith is in terms of niyyah. And the example uses emigration. It's immigration, but the heart also immigrates. The heart's travel. What does the heart travel from? The heart travels from the ego, or being attached to the ego, or doing things for the ego. Or the heart travels from hawa, from desires, from the vain caprices and acting upon them. The heart travels from leaving these things to acting for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. for acting purely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is the realm in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants you. And this is where the ultimate goal of the believer is. The ultimate goal of the believer is that every single act that they do it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to earn His pleasure. This is the goal of the believer, or should be the goal of the believer, that every single act that they do, that everything that they do it wanting closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or wanting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Himself. Wanting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Himself. And this servant that wants that, he'll never be disappointed by any created thing or being. A person who solely wants and seeking the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will never be disappointed by created beings. They'll never be disappointed by them. Never be disappointed by them. Because it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who is perfect. And everyone else is deficient, including oneself. Everyone else is deficient, except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so, if you're seeking the perfection, then seek it with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is perfect. Don't seek it with the created beings, because then you're in for hardship, and you're in for disappointment, and you're in for sadness, and you're in for stress, and you're in for anxiety. This is what created beings give to one. This is the effects of seeking and going from one created being to another created being. You're in for disappointment, which will be coupled with sadness, or be coupled with anxiety, or be coupled with stress. This is what this world is, and what this world contains. And so seek the Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you won't be ever disappointed. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never disappoints His servant, whether He gives or He withholds. Once you seek with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even His withholding is good for you, and you'll understand, and you'll realize that even in His withholding, the withholding of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the best thing for you, because that's what He chooses for you. And so one will never be disappointed by his Lord if one hopes is in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if one's hope is with Allah subhanahu. This is why Ata'illah that to your Lord is your final destination in your hopes. In this world, in your hopes. Your hopes is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so you'll never be disappointed, because everything you'll see is an extension and coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so you will smile more, and you'll be happy more. You'll smile, and you'll be contented. You'll be contented, and you'll smile. And nothing in this world will faze you. Little of it or a lot of it that you have will never faze you, and you will smile. You will smile. Most of the people in this world, especially this part of the world, they don't smile because they're never contented. They'll always be fighting upstream, and if you ask them, they'll always tell you at the end, if they're true to themselves, that they're always fighting, and they're always fighting upstream because they always want more, because they're never satisfied, because their hopes are greater. Their hopes are they put it on other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and so they're always saddened, or they're always in states of miserableness, or in states of sadness, because they want other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They want other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Put your hopes in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will never ever disappoint the servant. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us, guide us, forgive us, have mercy upon us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect our elders, our parents, give them good health and long life. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increase us in knowledge, practice of the deen. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us and protect our children, keep them on the straight path. Those who are sick, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala heal them and cure them. Those who have passed away, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant them His mercy, His maghfirah, and His shade on that day when there's no shade except His. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the bounties of this world and grant us the tremendous bounty of the next world. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increase us in closeness to Him and love of Him and following the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and increase us in our love of Him. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala free us from the need and from the wants of this world and place our hopes in Him. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us, make our homes from amongst the homes of the believers, and make our last words our best words. Subhanaka wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk, wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.
Thank you for listening to The Hikam with Shaykh Zahir Bacchus. Help Seekers Hub spread the light of guidance to millions around the world by supporting us through monthly donations by going to seekershub.org/donate. Your donations are tax deductible in the US and Canada.